Hey everybody, welcome to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders where we share insights we wish we had learned earlier in our careers.
We want to equip you to learn more, grow faster, and thrive in both your work and personal life. I'm Jay.
And I'm Jeff. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome back to the Early Edge Mentorship Podcast. Today we're going to continue our series on communication with a very important skill called feedback. We're going to cover receiving feedback and the mindset that is most effective. And of course, how do we give feedback even when it's tough?
Jay, I think of feedback as a muscle, by the way. We'll talk a lot more about that and share some stories and principles. But boy, it's one of those muscles that you really do need to work. And as you work it, you can get so much better at it.
Yeah, it's so important and effective in any sphere of life. So we're going to dedicate an entire episode. First, Jeff, you have a great story early in your career about receiving feedback. Tell us about it.
I do. A number of years ago, I was leading growth marketing for a company called Paycor. Paycor is in the HR payroll space based here in Cincinnati. I was leading growth marketing. At the time, the company was about 60 or 70 million in revenue, and we were driving all the lead generation, all the growth. And we were developing a campaign that was important. We were spending in the neighborhood of $500,000 on this campaign, so it's a pretty sizable marketing campaign. We decided to hire Second City. If you're not familiar with Second City, that's a group out of Chicago that was made famous by Saturday Night Live. A lot of the people from Saturday Night Live were a part of Second City. We hired them to film 3 video shorts that would bring some humor to payroll. Payroll is kind of black and white, kind of boring.
Very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. They did a phenomenal job. This was filming video shorts, and it was an expensive campaign. So long story short, I was responsible as well for writing the copy for the campaign. And this was back in the days of DVDs.
Yes.
So
those are little silver round things that contain information.
Yes. Well before streaming, this is how you watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to use these, mail them out to prospects, and we could stream them as well. But DVDs was really the main way to distribute these. And so I was writing the copy for the DVD cover. And I remember spending a ton of time writing the campaign, writing the copy for the DVD cover, and showing it to the team. I spent all this time. I felt really good about it. And one of the executives at Paycor said, that copy's okay. You need to spend more time on it. And I was immediately like, what are you talking about? I spent so much time on this. That feedback hurt.
So your initial reaction was it hurt. What was going through your mind as you received it?
And maybe hurt is not the precise word, but maybe frustrated is better.
Yeah.
I had spent hours and hours and hours and hours, right, on this. Now, I will admit that it was still kind of version 1. It was a lot of copy, so it took a lot of time. It was still kind of version 1. But in my mind, I was like, I spent time on this. It's really good. And so I was frustrated. I didn't want to hear the feedback. I didn't want to have to go back and spend more time on it. I just wanted to check the box and keep going.
Yeah.
Something else.
Initial response, frustration. Clearly you report to these folks, so you have to go do the work whether you want to or not. Once you got back into it, what was the result?
We've talked a lot about running analogies probably on every episode and taking the first step. And for me, I just had to be willing to listen, pause, and take the first step at re-looking at the copy. Yeah. And once I got into it, and I realized, you know what, I don't have to spend as much time as it took to write the first copy. I just need to spend a little bit of time and work on amping it up, making sure it's really better targeted to the audience we were writing toward. Once I got started, I felt much better.
So how was the finished work product and the response when you went back?
Oh, it was, the copy was better, no doubt. I mean, it was better. And I was so thankful that they had pushed me. They were pleased with the outcome.
Did that shape how you thought about feedback going forward, or even a little?
It certainly reinforced that feedback is a gift, and the natural tendency to fight it or disagree with it or just become frustrated with it. And so it encouraged me just to be willing to pause for a minute and say, let me process that before my just emotions immediately respond. Let me process it. Let me think about it.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about principles of effective feedback. So what did you demonstrate in there that made it productive, and therefore what would you tell our listeners are the right kinds of mindsets around feedback when you're getting it?
It's a bit of that growth mindset that
Yeah.
I'm probably getting this feedback from someone that cares about me, that wants me to get better.
Yeah.
I should take it as almost the same way I'd take positive feedback and encouragement. They see it from a different perspective.
Yep.
And they're probably not just wanting me to go spend another 3 hours wasting time. They see something in me and they want to improve it.
Yeah. And if you have that mindset, your default is, I have something to learn. I know there's something more I can do. They have a different perspective. Another piece I like to add when working with younger leaders is it may not be true, but it's a data point. So if you get feedback from somebody on, hey, the way you behaved in that meeting wasn't good, they may not have the whole story, but it is a data point that tells you how they're seeing you and lets you go do something about it. So humility, curiosity feel like really important pieces of that.
Another thing that has helped me is naturally if we get positive feedback that we did a great job, our natural response is thank you. So train your mind that anytime you get any feedback, to let your mind first say thank you.
Yeah, great.
Even if it's negative, just because it'll help you shape your mind to not be emotional when you first get it. Just say thank you and then take a little time to process it. And if you still disagree with it, great. You can go back and say, well, either give me a little bit more on this because I don't quite understand it, or, I'm not so sure, but you can have a conversation about it in a much more practical way.
That's a fantastic overarching tip. As I think about people with the highest influence I know, or the most successful people I know, they're all looking to get better and maximize their influence. They would be people who say thank you when they know someone's come and given the time and maybe even taken a risk to share their perspective for the good of the receiver. Really, really good.
Do you have a story on receiving?
Yeah, let's talk about giving.
Okay.
I only have a story on giving. I have plenty of receiving. I do have a story on receiving. We started this episode with a story because of feedback we have received about the podcast. It's from our core audience who happen to be relatives of ours, children, who said, give us more of story. Give us more of your personal experiences. So we're responding to that feedback. Thank you, children. I wanted to talk about giving. When it's time to share your perspective, it could be constructive. It could be positive.
And before you go on, I want to give some feedback related to what you just said.
Yeah.
This is a message to my children that I'm giving you feedback that you're not giving me enough feedback. Your kids seem to be giving you a lot of feedback. Mine don't. So sorry, I had to work that in real quick.
They're part of the core audience. So
Yes, they are.
yes, Jeff's children, come on, bring it. We need to get better. We want to get better. So I have been an entrepreneur for a long time and had different business partners. One of the ways I was most toxic to my businesses and my business partnerships is I was afraid to have hard conversations. So I would encounter experiences where I had perception that my partner was not holding up their end of the bargain, or they were not performing in a way that I expected. And I held back often. And I would do this with employees as well, but it was particularly acute and damaging when the leaders of the business are not having truthful and honest conversations about what's on their mind. So I had a really hard time early in my career, especially running companies, with having constructive exchanges of points of view with my partners, and it was damaging to the business.
Interesting. And so looking back, are there things that triggered those emotions or those challenges that you wish you had done differently? And
Absolutely. The underlying emotion was fear. Is what will they think of me? This will be a tough conversation. It won't be productive. Plenty of stories in my brain about how they would receive it before I even gave them a chance to receive it. So I had all kinds of talk tracks going in my brain that were telling me I shouldn't do this. And I was therefore increased my fear about doing it.
It sounds like a lot of it was around disagreement, where you and your business partners might disagree on an approach or how to tackle something or solve something.
Yeah, and performance expectations. I didn't even have the tools to align on performance expectations before I started judging them on their performance. So we had some foundational things that weren't in place, which made it even harder.
Knowing what you do in your business, this probably gave you a lot of real life examples to build the things that you help executive teams deal with.
Absolutely. I lead all of my projects with transparency about my journey as a leader and talk about how I was toxic to my own companies with really good intentions. And this was a primary fundamental one. When leadership teams can't air everything they need to air and get the truth on the table, as I call it, they just can't be as effective. So I had to break through and learn this skill. And part of it is what we talked about in your example, which is once I appreciated that feedback is a gift, I realized if I want the best for the people I care about, business partners included, I owed them that gift. Instead of assuming they were going to be hard to deal with, I needed to give them the chance to be something other than that. And that flipped the way I saw my responsibility as a good business partner or a good boss or a good husband or a good father. We owe it to the people we are responsible for, the ones we care for, to give them as best as we can our humble view of how we see a situation. And it was hard.
It's interesting that the reason you held it back, and I'm sure there are many different reasons. For me, I've led teams most of my career, and I've tried to give feedback. I probably, I know that I didn't give as much as I should have, probably 75% of the time that I would think about feedback that I should be giving. I just didn't give. And I think for me, it was more of a thought of, well, they're not going to do anything with it anyway.
Oh, yeah. You had a story going through your head.
And that kept me from giving it, but that was wrong.
Yeah, you were withholding an opportunity as well. So I think the principles here are, let's look and examine at the reasons we aren't effective with feedback. So mine was I didn't give it. I was apprehensive to give it. Another is people give it with a hammer. I'm just going to tell you exactly the way it is, and not with a humility or a perception or a curiosity, but I'm just going to give it to you, and tough luck, you need to take it. And I don't care what you think. And then another is avoidance, because I'm just not sure they're going to do anything with it, and so why bother? Mm-hmm. Are there any other examples that come to mind for you that make feedback ineffective?
This one may kind of be categorized with one of the ones we've already said, but sometimes when you give feedback, there's almost a belligerence sometimes. This isn't common, but it happens.
Yeah, sure.
You will get so much resistance verbally and body language and everything that it can really taint your desire to give feedback.
Yeah. And I want to encourage our listeners, if effective feedback is something you recognize as a growth area for you, fantastic first, that you appreciate it. Secondly, you can strengthen this muscle through practice, self-reflection. There are some basic tools and methodologies. I'll share some framework ideas that I now teach. But I just want you to understand that 20 years ago, I ran away from conflict. I avoided it as much as possible, and there are real consequences of operating that way. Today, I thrive in it. I look for it. I love the role of peacemaker. I appreciate when it's time to have a hard conversation, that it's an amazing opportunity to strengthen a relationship, improve a business, do good things. If you bring a certain skill set to it, you stand out as somebody who can make change in a really positive way.
Yeah. The part for me too, in getting it out, is just getting the first word out. Yeah. It's just, you just have to start.
Hey, I've got something that's on my mind.
Yeah.
It's bugging me.
And that right there, those words right there,
yeah.
Then you'll dive in, and you just got to get the first word out.
I like to add a second phrase to that, which is, I know I don't have the whole story. And let me tell you what I do have. I teach a module on giving effective feedback in leadership training. So I will give some kind of structural pieces to it that make the conversation easier and make it more effective for the receiver.
So tell us more about that methodology.
Yeah, so principles of it are, one, make it fact-based. So if I come to you with feedback on your performance and I'm giving you broad brush strokes, you're just not getting it done, Jeff.
Or you use always and never. We've talked about that before.
Correct. It's just not actionable. It's not credible. So I need to use specific examples. When we agreed to do this project, Jeff, you were going to do the thing. We said that was your role, and here was the deadline, and now it's a week later. That's fact-based. Okay, so be fact-based. It has to be timely. I can't say, when we agreed to do that thing and you agreed to the role by this deadline, that was 6 months ago, and that really frustrates me. It needs to be timely and real and fact-based, and it needs to be objective as best as I can. And part of objective is this is my perception, or here's the data I have. The way I view it is my emotional response to it. So you try to take as much of that out of it so it's factual from your perspective, and you've got to deliver it in a respectful way. Your language, always and nevers are no good, accusatory, loud. Those things will just shut someone down right away. There are any number of models that you can look up for how to give feedback. One of them, just an example, is called SBI, and it stands for Situation Behavior Impact. If I were giving Jeff feedback on missing the deadline, it would be, hey, the situation was we agreed to this project, you were going to do this role and do this deliverable by this date. That's the situation. The behavior is you missed the deadline and you didn't communicate and let us know. The impact of that was our client project's at risk, the team's frustrated, and we're going to miss the thing. So that sets it up. If you're a person who's talking to a direct report where you can talk about future expectations, or it's a relationship where you talk about in the future it would be helpful if, then you would then say, okay, what do you think about that? And then what do we think is the right agreement going forward, or what's the right expectation or the new behavior and impact we're looking for?
Yeah, related to that, one of the things that I've always encouraged people that are starting a new role or new job, it could be a new project, to your example, is make sure that 30 days in, schedule a formal meeting with your boss, the team, whoever it is that could help you get better, and schedule that meeting and ask, how am I doing?
That's great.
And just listen, seek that feedback in those moments.
Yeah, that's great. And then a couple encouragements for you as you enter your leadership opportunities where you get roles where you're managing folks is timely and frequent is really, really important. Being frequent, people always want some degree of understanding of where they stand. And it doesn't have to be always structured. There's going to be structured performance management opportunities to give feedback, but there are a lot of ad hoc opportunities. And don't forget affirmation and encouragement. Don't be someone who's focused solely on the transaction and continuous improvement. Yes, we need to care about getting better all the time. No doubt about that. And we need to remember that reinforcing the behavior, calling out the behavior we want is more powerful than corrective action.
The quick thank you note or the quick just comment, don't, again, hold those in your head.
Yeah.
Share them.
Yeah. There's a little story I want to tell about that is I was leading one of my companies and there was a younger person on the team who was just crushing it all the time. She was just doing a great job all the time. And in our Monday kind of stand-up meeting, I would often recognize people for good performance or behavior. And it seemed like every week I was calling her out. And after about 6 times, she pulled me aside and said, hey, thank you for doing that, but it makes me really uncomfortable. It would be much more comfortable and effective if you did that in private. And I thought, well, that's really good feedback because I'm trying to have this be good for you, not to make you uncomfortable. So as leaders, we need to learn what's the language of affirmation and recognition that our people need. I like to say, affirm in public and criticize in private. I'll leave the criticize in private as, you have hard conversations one-to-one for sure. But affirmation doesn't necessarily work best in public. Find out what the person receives well and will give them the affirmation you're intending instead of having it be discomfort.
Another way that I visualize giving and receiving feedback is sports teams. And a lot of our listeners maybe played team sports. Maybe a lot of you played individual sports. But if you watch, fill in the blank your team sport, I'll use college football or pro football. Usually, not always, but usually the quarterback is very direct in giving feedback to the offensive line or the receivers of the backfield. And they don't have time to dilly-dally. Now, I'm not suggesting in a workplace that you get in their face and grab them by the collar. Right. But it's a great visual lesson of elite teams and the way they communicate and give feedback to each other. And it doesn't become a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's how do we get better and how do we be the best?
Yeah, that's great. And that's, again, a mindset of excellence is I want feedback because I want to be as good as I can be. And we need feedback from other perspectives from people around us who see things we don't see. So what are our key takeaways?
The first would just be remind yourself that feedback is a gift. It's something that is a tool that helps you get better.
Receive it with thanks.
Yes.
I love that. Start with thanks. That was a great tip. How about we need feedback if we want to be awesome? It's a requirement for us to be the best version of ourselves. And flip side is, if we care about those around us, it's a requirement that we provide that to them. So we need to sharpen our skills so we do it in a way that they want to receive it. So fact-based, timely, objective, respectfully delivered, for their good, all that stuff.
Don't hold it back. If you think about it and you think it's really beneficial to either encourage or help that person, share it. Please don't, hold it in your head.
Yep.
Too many times we do that.
All right.
Excellent. That's a great episode, Jay. I think that's our early edge for the week.
You got it.
Thanks for listening to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders. If you have feedback or would like to submit questions or a topic idea, email us at earlyedge@reddogadvisors.com
or earlyedge@altaimpact.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow, subscribe, rate, and review. See you next time.